Hello and welcome to the Peak Endurance Podcast. Thank you for joining me for episode 194. My name is Isabel Ross and I am the host and coach at Peak Endurance Coaching. Thank you for joining me for this episode on menopause. If you are a man, good on you for listening, because you are supporting the women in your life by listening and finding out more about what's affecting them, even if it's not right now, but in the future. And if you're a woman, whether you're in menopause or not, or perimenopause, you will learn a lot from this podcast. Or, maybe not learn so much about the facts, but learn a personal perspective on menopause and how Lourdes has dealt with it. That's my friend from Canada. And she is on again because I just love chatting with Lourdes. And we thought, what better excuse to have another chat than another pod? So here she comes on to talk about all things menopause and how she has had to learn to deal with it. And her situation may be similar to yours, different, but either way, it's something as women we all have to go through at some point, whether we want to or not. And quite frankly, I don't want to, but what's the alternative? So we shall see what you think. I hope you enjoy it. Now, I have created, I've put a lot of work and done heaps of research, put a lot of work into creating a webinar on menopause. Now, I did once again, lots of work into the menstrual cycle, and the women who joined me for that really enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. And I think you'll find the same with my menopause workshop. It really is incredibly helpful for understanding what you are going through, but also things you can do to try to lessen the severity of the symptoms and learn how to deal with it better whilst managing to get in your training and all those sorts of things. So I really think it will help. It will go for about 90 minutes or so of me doing the webinar part. Then we'll have question and answer afterwards. I think you will get a lot out of it. And even if you're not in perimenopause or menopause yet, this can be helpful for knowing for in the future, because, knowledge is power, and you want to know, like Lourdes, she didn't know what was wrong with her. She thought she was going mad. So it was only once she did a little bit of reading herself that she realized it, and just the relief she felt from that, just knowing, helped her immensely. So I'm sure you could find maybe the same, even if you're not in perimenopause. Like I'm not, obviously, because I've said it, not obviously. But just doing all the research, it's like, well, once it starts to happen, I will know and I'll understand and I won't think I'm going crazy. So I hope that this can be the same for you, whether you are in menopause, perimenopause or not. So that will be on Wednesday, the 3rd of May. Now, I know that seems a long time away, but Wednesday, 22nd of March, I've got my mental toughness training workshop. Love you to join me for that. Everyone who's attended that, and I've had quite a few, I've had 2 live ones and with a lot of people attending, and I had people attend twice, basically. Let's put it that way. So I hope you join me for that and get a lot out of that. It's a great, I love the workshop and I love sharing, the strategies and techniques and skills to help people have a better race experience and to maximize their fitness, basically, because you can have all the fitness in the world, but if you fall apart mentally, what was the point? So this is designed to help you really maximize your fitness and the potential performance that you can have. And there's quite a number of PDF workbooks to go along with it, which I will send out before the workshop, because you need them for the workshop. But I'll also send out the recording of the workshop so you can watch it again. And there'll be notes to go with it and all sorts of things. So lots from that. That's 7 p.m. Wednesday, 22nd of March. Once again, that goes for about 90 minutes or so. And then there'll be question and answer at the end. And normally at the live ones, I have quite a lot of question and answer, and it's really good. But so please, as you're being involved in that webinar, make sure you're taking notes to ask questions at the end, because I'm more than happy to answer any kinds of questions. Before that, on the 19th of March, Sunday the 19th of March, I have a pole skills clinic. So please join me for that too. You've got Buffalo coming up, Alpine Challenge, all the kinds of races where you need to use poles. Absolutely. So that will be the 3rd of May. So I know April saying, well, why aren't I doing anything in April? Well, Easter. school holidays, not that I have school holidays, but not a lot of people go away and they don't want to be bothered with that sort of stuff. Then I don't know if you know, but, well, you probably don't, because 22nd of April, Ron and I are getting married. So the week before, I'm not going to want to do anything. The week after, we'll be away on a honeymoon. So, that kind of, what with Easter and the holidays, that writes off April. So Wednesday, the 3rd of May it is, and it'll be here before you know it. And that'll be 7 p.m. Once again, around 90 minutes. That's kind of, I find, the sweet spot. And question and answer at the end of that too. Okay. And I think, once again, I really think you will get so much out of it. And like I said, I've put in a lot of work to make sure that you're getting really timely and information that's current and that will help you. And even if it, it will help you, but it will also help you feel less alone being there with a group of women, although it's online, having, sharing the experience, because in the question and answer, you'll hear people's questions and you'll go, oh my God, that's me. So join me for that. There'll be a page on the website, so have a look for that. All righty. So I also wanted to say thank you so much for last week on the pod. I probably had a little bit of a moment. Things have been, well, life has its ups and downs, and I'm no different. I know I pride myself on being tough, and I tend to try not to show emotions. I was brought up with a Scottish father, British, stiff upper lip and all that. I'm never been a big one for being effusive with my emotions, but sometimes, even for me, it all gets a bit much. And yes, if you haven't heard, go listen. But I really appreciate those kind and lovely people, and who you are, who reached out to me to make sure I'm okay, and I really appreciate it, and I'm feeling emotional just talking about it. So I really, really appreciate it, because it has been a tough 6 months for me. No, well, not 6 months. No, when was December? 3 months ago. Feels like 6 months. Tough 3 months or so for me, but onwards and upwards, as they say, and things can only get better, can't they? It's like anything, ups and downs, as we say. So, and like I said, thank you so much to those people who reached out to me. I really appreciate your kindness. And, that's what this running community is about, isn't it? Supporting each other and showing that we care. And thank you. I appreciate it. And today I'm feeling a lot better. Tomorrow I might not. That's the way these things go, isn't it? And I'm sure you have experienced much the same. So anyway, enjoy this podcast about menopause as much as you can. And I look forward to you joining me again next week. I have another interview lined up for you next week that will be really interesting if you are interested in dealing with chronic pain or improving recovery or dealing with injury. Stay tuned for that. That is going to be a really awesome one. All right. Thanks for joining me, and enjoy the pod. Bye. Hello, Lourdes, and welcome back to the Peak Endurance Podcast.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, a woman of few words. We'll get to that.
Yes.
We'll be talking a lot later. So can you, everyone in Australia has got to know you now, and that was a very popular podcast, so everybody loves you, and who wouldn't? Can you just tell us a little bit about what you've done? Because bloody hell, every time I look on Instagram, you're doing some madcap adventure. And not only tell us what you've done, but talk to us about your backpack or whatever it is with the boggly eyes on it. Okay, so talk.
Herman.
Yeah. All right. So,
back in like 2015, 2016, I started doing winter ultras, and then the winter ultras that I've done, you carry about 15 to 20 pounds of survival gear. So it'd be a sleeping bag, a bivy, a pad, usually a stove and fuel, food, and clothing that you would need to survive. Most of the ones I've done have been 80 miles to 135.
Wow.
The different distances I've done. I've done them in Alaska, in Finland, in Wyoming, in Wisconsin, in Minnesota. So I pull a sled, and then the sled, I have a bag on the back, a duffel bag.
Yeah.
And when I started training, it's a lot of long hours because it's a lot of walking. Sometimes it's snowshoeing, which is even slower.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's sledding, which is super fun. And anyways, all those long days and stuff, I just would find myself talking to myself. So I decided that I looked a little less crazy if my bag had googly eyes. And so I named it Herman. And now I do believe that Herman is quite more popular than I am these days.
Well, I do look forward to seeing his updates, you know?
Yes. And he currently, in my last escapade, he lost an eyeball.
Oh,
so
no.
if you look closely, you'll see that he has two different sized googly eyes.
Oh, I'll have to check it out properly. I shall I'll post a pic with the episode. So
I'll send you one. I took one
yes.
today. Well, in the one I took today, you don't really see his eyes very well. So I'll have to take one that you can see his eyes. I don't know that people have noticed that he has different sized eyes, but
well, I think it's quite funny. I haven't noticed. Yeah, I haven't noticed. So
a couple people who have seen me out and about who see me regularly have noticed, and it's pretty funny.
Gives him some character.
Yes. Yes, it does.
And you had a bit of a dump of snow the other week, didn't you?
Yes, finally. Because we haven't had hardly any snow. And then it snowed for like 2 days straight. It's beautiful. It's a little warm, and it's very light and fluffy, which is kind of odd. But today was kind of warm, so it's starting to get packed down. So I've been out in my snowshoes the last one day. I just trudged through the snow, and I was so sore and so tired. The next day I was like, oh, I'm going to get my snowshoes, even though it's slower. So I got the snowshoes out, and what a difference. Like, it is slow, really? But it is good to just practice with them, because the monotony of the snowshoes, to kind of get used to that pace, to be okay with that pace. And also, what a difference. Like, the next morning, my legs were fine. It really, the snowshoes really take a brunt of the work out for you. So that's really nice.
Well,
also dragging.
It's so much work when you're sinking into the ground,
Oh, it's awful. And you're using all those little stabilizer muscles that you probably don't use that much.
Yeah.
And so it does become a bit of I call it trudging.
Yes.
And it just wipes you out, right? It's kind of, the nice thing is that we've had quite mild temperatures. So, whereas if you're looking for a distance to do, it's going to take you twice as long.
Yes.
But it's okay to be out there if the temperature's kind of okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not that big a deal if it's not 40 below zero.
Yeah. So what's the date of your race?
My next race is next week.
Oh, oh my God.
I have a race on Friday.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And so how long's this one?
This one's 100 miles, and it's in the Wind River Range of Wyoming. It's called the Drift.
So is this a snow one, or is this a running one? Okay.
That's a snow one. Yeah.
Okay. So is Wyoming, because you said you've already been to one in Wyoming, is that like a particularly cold area? I know nothing about America.
Well, at this time of year it is. It's not really particularly cold. It's at altitude, so it's between kind of 7,000 and 9,000 feet. And go up and over the Continental Divide several times, because you kind of go up and down, up and down. So there's quite a bit of elevation. Which is, kind of 4-mile climbs up, but then you get to, ride your sled several miles down.
Yeah, that's nice.
And catch the people who choose to run.
Oh, really? Do some people? Oh, why would you run?
Some people, I don't know, because they don't want to ride there. Well, I mean, it can be a little
sketchy,
harrowing. Yeah, it can be a little sketchy. I had one race where I kind of went head over sled, and I ended up breaking my arm. So,
wow.
I mean, not really bad. It was just a stress fracture. But, I mean, like...
that ended your race, though, right?
No.
You kept going? Oh, good for you. Go Lourdes.
Well, I don't think I realized it until I was on the airplane flying home. I had this big bump, like, kind of here, in the bone. And I was like, well, this is not right. And it hurt, like, a lot. And I was like,
Are you
boy, that
kidding?
really hurts a lot. Like, that's not right.
Yeah. Oh, good
No,
on you.
but at the time, like, when you're in the middle of something,
Yeah.
it's like when I broke my finger.
Yeah.
It's still pretty
A bit
broken. Well,
wonky. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it compared to
Oh,
the other one,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty
That's
wonky.
definitely wonky. Yeah.
But
But yeah,
like,
I guess when you're doing it, everything hurts. So what's the difference?
it's almost kind of nice when something new hurts. It takes your
Yeah.
mind off of what's been hurting for the
Yeah, that's
last 20
right.
miles,
I know.
right?
And isn't it funny because I find that something sometimes when one part hurts and you're like, oh, no, that this hurts. That other bit that was hurting doesn't hurt anymore. It's like it's a tag
Yeah,
team going on in the body.
I think so. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. So anyway, we're here not to talk about your racing, even though, God, I reckon we could talk for another full hour on that because you're always doing something interesting. But we're actually here to talk about menopause because
Yes.
menopause is no longer a taboo subject, and we can,
No, it's not.
yeah, it's being widely
Much
discussed.
to the chagrin of my children, it is not in this house. I talk about it extensively.
Oh no. Oh, there goes mum again.
Yes.
Yeah, well, so I thought I'd get you on because last time you were on and we sort of touched on it and you said later we should have a podcast where we discuss menopause. So I
Yeah.
thought I would get you on and we could talk about it because I've had a lot of women through social media contacting me saying, the troubles they're having and what can they do? And I didn't know. So I personally have done a lot of research on it and a lot of work on it. I've actually created a webinar which I will be, doing with once I get off my butt and advertise it. But so I've got that, like a whole thing on it. But I thought we'd get you on and get your personal experience because I myself, I'm not in perimenopause or menopause in spite of my age. So it's better to get someone's real perspective on it. So,
Yeah.
you know, can you tell me, well, and I'm assuming you're happy to just discuss everything, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
And I think that'll be really helpful for women out there because Lourdes was a bit nervous about coming on, dear listener, because she was worried she'd sound like she's a whinger, but she's not. It helps people to realize they're not alone, and I think a lot of women feel like they're a bit alone with this, and because everyone else seems to be coping, but it's more that it's just not talked about. So, how old were you when you started going into menopause? When you went into perimenopause?
I don't really know about perimenopause. I've always had sort of light periods that I never was one of those people who had the menstrual cramps or anything like that. Never had really heavy periods. I did notice, maybe there was a couple of months where they were maybe a little bit heavier, maybe a little goopier, you know what I mean? And but I didn't really think too much of it. And I didn't really think never really crossed my mind. It was like I'm 54 now, and I started maybe 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was, pretty young, 48. However, I'm going to premise it by saying that I only have one fallopian tube and one ovary and half a uterus. So I don't know if
why?
So it was like a birth defect. It was like an anomaly. So
so
I don't know.
Have half a uterus?
It's basically just like my uterus, like it's supposed to look like a pear. Like an upside down pear. It just looks like half of one.
But you were still obviously able to have children.
Well, actually, I was told I was never going to have children.
Oh, that would have been devastating to hear.
Don't tell me never.
Well, no, because then it means you're definitely going to do it.
Right. No, we had a couple of years of, it was very difficult. And we went through the whole, were we going to be able to have kids? We had talked about adoption. I just happened to live in Virginia, about 45 minutes from the US's basically premier like kind of neonatal doctors. And so I just got very lucky. And my uterus is actually in a textbook somewhere.
Awesome.
So, because it turned out like when they went in to look at it, the condition that I have is known as a unicornate uterus. And in
I
that,
kind of almost like that name.
not like a unicorn, it's just unicorn,
Oh,
which actually meant that it didn't have good, they don't tend to have good blood flow. They look dry and kind of nasty and wrinkly, and nothing was good. Like when my original doctor sat me down, I came in and she was like, I don't even know what to say. I'm just going to give you the name of this doctor and go see them. Like she had
yeah.
So, and in most case scenarios, what happens is people, if they get pregnant, they tend to miscarry. Usually either early on or mid, because the cervix becomes is very weak.
Yeah.
And the uterus doesn't have good blood flow. And so it's not really viable. Yeah. So I went through laparoscopic surgery. They saw that my uterus was actually in very good shape. And the doctor, I was a very active, I swam, I ran. So I never was one of those people, though, I guess, who did enough activity that I didn't have a period. Now, some people were so active that they didn't have periods in their youth. I wasn't like that. I always had very short periods, but I never really thought, if that's all you know, you don't know anything.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah. So, in any case, I did end up having kids. It all worked out. And I didn't really think about it again. And I don't think it was really, yes, it was the periods getting a bit weird, but I think it was more the other things. Like especially as a person who never had a lot of, when you have your period and you feel terrible. I never had any of that. Like menopause I've just been hot, flashy, and I've had all the terrible side effects of, like your brain, like you lose your memory and you're kind of foggy brain. And you kind of think, I do remember the day that I was sitting reading an article, and I really kind of had gone through a bit of maybe a couple months, maybe a year or so of just being like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Like, what is wrong with me? Like, I just, my runs were getting slow. I was lethargic. I was tired. I was irritable. Just all of those things. And I just didn't know what it was. And I just thought it was depression or just sadness or boredom. I just didn't know, but I just kept trudging along, doing my thing. And one day I read an article and I was like, that's it. I'm menopausal. That's what it is.
But so because perimenopause is getting the symptoms, but still having your period. Menopause is once your period has stopped for 12 months.
That's right. Yeah.
So has your period stopped for 12 months?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I haven't had a period in I want to say 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So I don't have a period anymore. And no,
Yeah. So you're still getting hot flashes, even though you
always. Oh, but I'm like having one right now. I'm like,
I noticed you started unzipping your top.
And then you get cold, and it's like the biggest thing for me, the side effect is anxiety. Like I get this anxiety, and if I'm doing something and I get really anxious, immediately I'm just soaked in sweat. I've been sitting at a table having a conversation with my elbows just start dripping water. Like that's how.
I shouldn't laugh, but that's
that's the way it isn't. Some people don't get it, and I talked to my doctors about it. I'm kind of a mess. Unfortunately, I had a stroke several years ago, and so I can't take like the hormones and stuff because that can then there's a higher degree of possibly all the side effects. You've probably seen on commercials and stuff, there's like 8,000 side effects, so they don't recommend. Also, my family has all sorts of ovary cancer and uterine cancer and breast cancer and everything from every all sides. And so they the doctor suggested that I didn't. So I haven't really done anything. Somebody recommended taking turmeric, and I tried, and I take it. It hasn't. I don't feel like it's helped at all, but I still
Yeah,
take
because
it.
I've heard that that's meant to help with the hot flashes, isn't it? But yeah.
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 I mean, I still hot flash
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and just sometimes I go through like I said, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I really had kind of gone through a 4 or 5 month where I didn't really have them, and then now all of a
Wow.
sudden,
And you were like,
there,
woohoo.
yeah, and I thought I was done, and
Yeah.
then somebody told me like, oh yeah, my mom suffered with those for like 8 or 10 years, and I was like, done. And then like the next week, I started
Oh
having it
shit.
again, and I don't know if it was like,
Yeah, is it
she told
like,
me that.
the power of suggestion?
Yes. And then the bad thing about them too is that then they interrupt your sleep
Yeah.
because you wake up and you're soaked in sweat, and then you're so hot and you throw off the covers, and then all of a sudden then you're freezing because you're soaked. So you're
Yes.
putting like it's a constant struggle.
Mm.
It's
And then of course you're sleep deprived, so then you're
yeah.
more tired and lethargic during the day, which menopause
That's right.
makes you more tired and lethargic regardless. And so it's
Right.
like double.
The only thing I don't seem to have, because since I found out I was menopausal, and now that more, even over the last 2 or 3 years, there's definitely been, I'm sure tomorrow on my phone, because I'm sitting here talking about menopause, tomorrow on my phone, it's going to be like menopause this and menopause
Yes,
that.
of course it will be. It's always listening, don't you worry.
You could listen to me and tell me how to cure my hot flashes.
Yeah.
But
come on.
yeah, but so I really have tried to figure stuff out. The only thing that I've been able to do really is to just be okay with the situation that I'm in, because I don't seem to be I know there's a Facebook group, menopausal women something or other, and a lot of people in that group tend to complain about achy joints and stuff like that, and I don't have any of that. Like
Yeah,
my joints
that's
don't
good. As a
ache.
runner, you don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, but so I haven't, and I still run. I mean, yeah, I don't run as fast. And I know a lot of the people are like, oh, I'm so slow now and this and that. And I feel like now I just haven't, I've always been slow, but now I just have an excuse like, oh, yeah. And I don't feel like running fast.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what, the racing you're doing doesn't like pulling that
Yeah,
doesn't
I'm not on a
benefit.
podium anywhere, people.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
And so you know how you were talking about that anxiety that you were getting.
Yeah.
Is that part of the hot flash, or is it because you can feel it coming on? Is it
I think it feeds. It's like I'll feel a hot flash coming, or if say I'm reading like detail things, like if I'm getting ready for a race and I'm going through all the details and stuff, and I start to get anxious about it, or I'm packing stuff and I'm starting to get anxious for some reason about something, I'll start feeling a hot flash coming on, right? And so it's kind of that anxiety. It feeds the hot flash, and then the hot flash just kind of like shoom comes through, and then my brain just goes like like my brain just like and I just can't, like, just sometimes just the thought of having to sit down and plan everything gives me a hot flash, because it just makes me like, so there's definitely been a heightened anxiety, and that was my biggest, I think maybe perimenopausal thing, was the heightened anxiety that I felt, because I didn't really feel like before I used to be anxious, and now it was, granted it was, and then COVID came, and that didn't help, and
no.
all that stuff, you know what I mean? It was just that heightened. But I do know that if I'm like listening to stuff, to news or something like that, that's exasperating or something, it tends to, I tend to get anxious, and then I tend to hot flash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't know if one has, but I've read a lot about that, at that being a side effect of it. And I guess that's pretty much the biggest side effect I have. And just the fact that that's kind of exhausting, in the sense, especially because I like to be out in the winter and stuff, and sweat is like the worst thing you can do.
That's what I was thinking. What do you do in those races? Because you've got all those 60 bajillion layers on.
Yeah, so it's just, I have zippers on everything, and I'm just like zip, 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 unzip, and I just constantly, and I have a lot of coats, I get them specifically with the zipper that opens from the bottom.
Good
So
idea.
that then you have like, I can unzip from like, and so I can
Yeah.
be basically open. And then if I need to shoot, I can zip it up again. And I wear, I don't wear anything that isn't like the technical type
Yeah,
layer.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if I do get soaked, then it dries.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
They
Yeah, because
stink, but at least they dry.
if you're in those freezing temperatures and you're wet like that, I mean, God, that could be really
Oh
dangerous.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's awful. And I have to be sort of hyper vigilant with trying not to sweat and trying, or as soon as I start feeling myself, like even here, like it can be, the other day it was 10 below zero and I could feel my hands just sweat. So I just took my mitts off
Yeah.
before they got wet, before they got sweaty. So
Yeah.
that then it just, all it takes is like 20 seconds and
Yes.
everything cool. The one good thing that I've been able to, well, it's been years now of, at first I just used to sit there and the only way I can explain it is like a fire that starts inside of you and you feel it kind of building up and then just like comes out. Like you feel the heat starting, but it's
Wow.
like there's nothing you can do. So I sometimes I always have little sodas, like
Yeah.
the little cans in my fridge. I'll grab a soda as soon as one starts coming on. I'll grab and like guzzle down a bunch
Yeah.
of like super cold drink, and then that kind of well, if it's like during the day that I'm, but at night you're kind of asleep, and so
Yeah, that's right.
you're just laying there soaking wet and you're like, fuck. Sorry. And then
Don't
you're
apologize.
awake, then you're awake and then you got to
And
go
does it
eat.
affect your husband? Like, does he feel that from you, the heat?
Well, he feels the fact that, well, yes, I do radiate heat,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but then I also have a fan and the window open and it's
Oh my
30
God.
below outside.
Oh my
So he's
God.
sleeping, he's like literally in flannel pajamas from here to here with a hoodie, with a thing over his head,
Oh, the
under
poor
all the
guy.
covers. And I'm like, with the covers on.
Oh my God, how annoying you are.
And yet on top of all that, my feet are still like two little cold stones.
Oh, wow.
So then
So
I
do you
just put
warm
them
your feet
on
up
him.
on him? Do you warm your feet up on him?
Yes.
Yes, good. He
And
must
he's
have
like,
you must have the patience of a saint, that one.
wow, everybody loves Lee.
Oh, that's funny, poor guy. And
It's
so what are some of the other symptoms that you have had? Have you had the weight gain around the middle? Because whenever I've seen you, you look,
yeah.
slim and fine and everything.
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, I no, I mean everything still fits and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that like, your body, depending on the time of year, you always have like a little bit of
Oh, I
gain
do.
and loss
Yeah,
here or there, depending
yeah,
on how
always.
much, you're sweating and stuff. But I
Yeah,
think because I still stay pretty active,
yeah,
because I'm able to, like, I can afford to, sleep in a little bit if I have to and go out a little bit later. Um, or just, do my workouts around feeling like crap. And I
yeah,
think it's just because my workouts mentally make me feel so much, even though physically maybe they're not the best workout, mentally it makes me happy to know I did it. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
that takes away the anxiety. And so then that, so I think the fact that I'm still working out and stuff, and I've never been like, I eat, you know,
Healthy. Yeah.
yeah, I eat pretty healthy. And I mean, I like my chips.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look, I believe in the 80-20 rule, not only in training, but in diet too,
Yeah,
You've got to have
yeah,
some nice treaty foods. So
yeah, for
what
sure.
about, I hear a lot about fatigue from, during menopause.
Yeah.
But like you said, you've got the lack of sleep, but you also said you can sleep in if you want to. What are some
Yeah.
other, what other ways have you dealt with like the fatigue?
Um, I really think that a lot of times I just push through it.
Yeah.
Like, I know that there are days sometimes I go to the gym and, I'm just like, I am literally just doing each exercise to get out of here. But but I get like, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
some days you just, where some days you go in and you're like, oh, I feel great. I really want to do this. I want to lift and I'm going to be really powerful. Some days you're just like, oh my gosh, 1, 2.
Yeah.
And I feel like my face is like, So I think it's just sort of, and again, I think a lot of people probably who felt the way I was feeling on that day would have skipped the gym,
Yeah.
but because I know mentally it will calm me,
Yeah.
because that's the way, like, that's what I've used running for my whole life. I mean, I know that I'm probably ADHD. I know I'm compulsive. These are all
Yeah.
things that nobody would be surprised to if a doctor told me. And so I have always used running, not only because I like to run, but also because it was a way to kind of calm
Yeah.
me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to just had me even keeled for the day. And
Yeah.
so I think that by continuing to do that, some days are harder than others. So some days, some weeks, I'm just like, I usually try to do like 6 days on, 1 day off a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just like 3 or 4 days on, and I'm like, okay, I need a day off,
Yeah.
and
And
then
and yeah, and I'm thinking that if you didn't train every time you felt the fatigue from menopause, then honestly, you might not train much at all.
well, and I think that's where a lot of people struggle with. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people end up, that's right, they just, or they get so down on themselves about not being able to train at the level that they're used to,
Yeah.
or that they used to train at,
Yeah.
or seeing the results that they used to see when they trained, that they just don't do it at all.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like I'm definitely an active recovery type of person. So even if I do something, an event, I'll take like 2 days off and then I'm out walking. I'm
Yeah.
out doing, like, I believe in active, what I call active recovery. And
Yeah.
so maybe it's not, you know, at the level of actually working out, but it's still moving and still doing something.
Yeah.
So, and I think I just try to be kind to myself and say, okay, well, that was a super slow, that 10K took you an hour and 20 minutes. That was super slow, but that's 10K in the bank.
Yeah.
You did it,
Yeah.
and nothing makes me sadder than, like, I was talking to a friend of mine one day, and she told me that she wasn't going to run anymore. She loved to run, but she wasn't going to run anymore because she went to do a 10K. She's going through menopause as well, and she's been suffering with the same type of symptoms. And she said, I was doing a 10K and I had to stop. I had to take a break. I had to stop and, drink water or something. If, like, I can't even run 10K without stopping,
Yeah.
then I'm not going to run anymore. And
Oh,
I'm like,
really?
and I was like, what?
Yeah.
I stop all the time. I was like, I stopped to pee, I stopped to eat, I stopped to take pictures. I stopped. That's like,
I mean, I'm not in menopause, but I stop all the time for those same reasons too.
I know.
I love to take
like,
a photo, and I think you got to enjoy it too, not just.
that's right. Yeah. And I was like, well, why don't you just go out and do a 5K
Yeah.
then?
Yeah.
And like, nobody's making you run a 10K without stopping.
Yeah.
I just think it's so funny. Like, people are like, well, I don't know if I can do this. What if I have to stop? I'm like, well, you
Stop.
stop and then you keep going. Like,
Yeah, it's not
I
that
don't
hard,
know.
is it?
So
Yeah.
I think it's about tabling, I think, maybe expectations, and that's a lot of the comments and stuff that I read. These people are like, oh, like, it's not worth doing if I can't do it the way I used to. And I'm like, well, I'm not the person I used to be,
No.
though.
No.
So,
And the
maybe
thing
I'm
is,
evolving.
even without menopause, if menopause didn't even happen, let's pretend there was this magical world, just
Yes.
aging slows you down. Do you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
that's right.
So
Yeah.
you're never going to be running at the
And
paces that you were. You're never going
that's
to.
right. And the thing is that there always are going to be those anomalies of the
Yeah.
people who are older and
Yes.
don't have any side effects, or, if you're using hormones, if you can use hormones, then from what I understand, that curbs the side effects quite a bit. And a lot of people feel great,
Yeah.
and they are still running the same. I'm just not one of those people. And so I think, you just have to be okay with the situation that you're in, that you find yourself in, and where your body is today. Like, be happy about getting out and being able to do something how you feel today, because you don't know. It could be better tomorrow, it could be worse tomorrow, you know?
And I mean, I had chronic fatigue from the age of 16 to early 30s. And I can tell you, I couldn't walk 2Ks without stopping for resting, even when I was 17, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there can be many things in life that can cause these kind of issues. And if we stop every time, you know, that's sad. I feel kind of sad for her that she feels like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she's gotten back, you know, once I said that to her, you know, she told me that, oh no, yeah. You know, I listened to you, and I've gotten back out there. And, you know, you're right. Like, I just, you know, I think it was, you know, with the social media and everything out there, I think, you know, and the people compare, like, you have to just not compare yourself to other people. It's hard not to, obviously. And it's okay to learn, you know, and listen to what other people are doing, and maybe try what other people are doing. But in the end, you have to kind of try to be okay with trying to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
Right. And what works for me is just kind of being okay with just feeling crappy all the time, you know?
Well, that's that's
I mean, it's, you know, and it's funny because, you know, I listen to other people, and, you know, young people, you know, and they're just like this. And I just like, just wait 30 years.
Yeah, I know. It's and don't you kind of feel like you just didn't appreciate it enough beforehand, you know, kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, no, because I mean, you know, when I was young and I was fast, I was young and I was fast, and it was my natural. That was my natural. Like, I would go out and run 6.5 to 7 minute miles, and that was my training, my natural training speed. That was my normal speed, you know. Now it's not. And I just have to be okay with that.
So how did you reconcile yourself with that? Like, how do you not compare it and go, I know this human body has done that speed before and is capable of that, but so how do you reconcile yourself to that?
Well, first of all, when you're running like really fast for really long, well, for me, the longest I ran like really fast was probably like half marathon, which was enough. It was really hard, and it really hurt. And to be honest, at the end of that, you know, it was like I think I ran like a 120, like 125, 126 half marathon. And it was awful, like the entire time. But I mean, and I kept thinking to myself, like, this is terrible. This really hurts, but I couldn't slow down. Like, that was just my speed. And I think, after, to tell you the truth, that was kind of like a click. Like, I never ran. I mean, I still trained, because like 5 miles doing that pace was fine. But then, you know, you have children.
I was the same. I did a 2:58 marathon, and that was so freaking painful. I didn't run another marathon for 4 years.
Yeah, like, yeah, that's right. And there's, I think some people feed off of that, and that's great. And there are people who are just gifted, and they can run. I mean, I love nothing more than to go out and see somebody who's really good at running, or, you know, and to see like and how effortless it is, right? But there's no part of me that wants to do what I would have to do to achieve that.
Oh my God, the training for it too. That was so painful.
I think that's and then, you know, life gets in the way, and work gets in the way, and then you're just, you know, you all of a sudden you're slower, and then my goals changed.
Yes. And you're never going to be fast when you're training for such long races. Like, it's you can't do both.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you have to choose what you prefer. Like, I have a friend who's 45, and she's still super, super fast, and she does 5Ks.
Yes.
You know, and that's what she likes to do. She likes to do them super fast. She trains super fast. She runs everything is super fast, like everything. But it's all 5K. You know, she's not going to go do anything long. So I think I enjoy the challenge of longer things. And so I think possibly it was because they didn't hurt as much. Possibly it was because it was a little easier to train for them. Possibly it's because it was just easy. Like, to me, it was easier to go longer than it was to go shorter and faster. So I kind of took the easier way out, to be honest. Like,
look, to be honest, I agree with you. I think I'd rather do 100-miler than do a really fast 10K or something,
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, maybe not 100-miler, maybe 50 or 100K.
The only benefit of those short, fast races is they're over so much quicker and you can still do something that day.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But yeah, other than that, oh God, the pain. No, not a fan. So anything else, like about menopause, any tips you can give for women for coping and still racing? Because like you're prolific with your racing. And I know a lot of women feel like
let's say I'm not really prolific with racing because I'm not racing any of these events, right?
I'm participating in races.
Yeah, like I go and I do them. But I'm by no means racing them, right? I think that would be a very different situation. I think that would be, you'd have to talk to somebody who was actually menopausal and racing them, right?
Yeah.
I'm just.
But I mean, you're still doing races, right?
Yes.
Whereas a lot of women feel demotivated enough to not even, participate.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think again, it's the choice that I've made to be okay with being slower and just like I don't put pressure on myself to perform to a certain time. Like I never have. People are always like, well, what's your time goal? I'm like, oh, I just want to get to the end. Like I don't have a time goal, I want to go.
What is your goal going into those races? Is it just to finish or is it?
I think it's to finish and it's to be self-sufficient and it's to enjoy like there's always parts of it you aren't going to enjoy, obviously, but as much as possible, it's to enjoy the experience and to be proud of myself that I can still go out there and do them. I mean, maybe I'm not super fast and maybe it's not super pretty, but I can still, and I think enjoy the fact that I want to. Yeah. Like I want to and I can. Just because you're menopausal, I mean, that's not a handicap in any it's just that it's just a level of uncomfortableness that you have to sort of get used to and accept as part of your daily life, and be okay with it. What I have to say though is once you're either perimenopausal or menopausal, like knowing that is what you're going through is a game changer, because for those like I'd say months, maybe even a year or so that I didn't know what was really going on with me, that was the worst, because you just literally think like you're going insane. Like I am, like I kept it so close to myself. I didn't share it with my husband or with my kids or anybody, because I really thought like I was like, what is wrong with me? Like I'm going crazy, like, because
and so how did you know definitively? I know you said you saw some description written, but did you get your hormones tested or anything?
No, no. Well, I read the article. It was an article that I read, and it was literally everything exactly that was happening to me. And I was like, okay, this is, and well, yes. I mean, well, eventually my period stopped.
Yeah.
And so, I'm gonna be honest. I'm really terrible I'm terrible about going to the doctor.
Oh yeah, no. I just wasn't sure if you got it right. And
those
hormonal tests are a bit different anyway.
Yeah, no. I mean, I know I have gotten blood work done for other things, and they've told me like definitively, oh yeah, you're menopausal and stuff, which I was like, well, duh, I haven't had a period in like 3 years. No, well, you're supposed to, come for a pap smear and the breast, which, I don't want to tell people don't do it. Please go do it. I'm terrible about going.
I'm terrible. I haven't had one in like over 10 years.
Yeah, I know. I'm like the worst. And so, and I need to be better about that. But
Yeah.
really, I'm the type of person that doesn't go to the doctor unless
Yes.
I'm,
Same. Yeah.
yeah. So, but I mean, so for me, and not that I was like self-diagnosing or anything like that, because I did go to see the doctor to talk about the hormones and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then when they looked at my history, they were like, well, we would prefer you didn't. And let's just see how you do. As I'm sitting there like dripping in sweat in our office.
I'm doing so
I'm like,
well.
well, bring a mop in and you can just mop right after me. So I walk out.
Oh,
So
how do you do? Because obviously you live in Canada where it's nice and cold during winter. How do you
yeah.
cope during summer when like it's like 35 degrees and then you have a hot flash?
Oh, yeah, no, that's awful. Like
Yeah.
I'm terrible in the heat. I try very hard not to do a lot of summer, hot
Events.
summer
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I'm better in the cool. When I was at Bandera just in January, it was like 1 a.m, finishing up the last 5 miles, and I was passing people like full jackets and toques and gloves, and I was in a short sleeve shirt. I was like, yeah, yeah. And I was still soaked in sweat.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm like, this is Texas. What are you people wearing puffy coats for?
No, because they don't understand cold weather.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
did you ever have any issues with your thyroid? Because that often goes along with menopause.
Yeah, I have never had my thyroid tested.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had blood work done and they've
But that's
never.
normally how it's tested with the blood work. And they would
Oh,
have told you if there was an issue. So there obviously wasn't.
yeah, I don't know. The whole Canadian medical system, I'm going to be pretty honest, not super impressed.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, I just feel like you definitely have to be your own advocate here. And like if you want something done, you just have to be very, very persistent,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
so since I was kind of told I couldn't do hormones or anything like that, I just kind of felt like, okay, well, I just have
They
to.
just left you to, yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm gonna have to figure it out on my own. And I know you're not, if you don't eat sugar, that's supposed to help. Not drinking wine is supposed to help.
Not drinking caffeine. Do you have caffeine?
I have coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
In the
got to have some
morning. I
bloody
mean, but
nice.
it's not like I drink coffee all day long,
No, no.
But I mean, also like, I don't know. I mean, like I said before,
So
you kind
basically, to survive menopause, you've got to give up everything that's good: sugar, wine, and coffee.
of I
You
do
know?
notice when I drink wine, especially red wine, especially,
Yeah.
I get flushed fast. I get really, but I'm not a big drinker, so that wasn't a big one. The
Yeah.
sugar for me is hard just because I like cereal and like I don't like add sugar to
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
but I
What
eat things
about
that are processed.
race foods? Because a lot of them are really sugary.
Yeah, but I think my body's just so used to like the same bars and waffles, and I have started trying to incorporate more salts
Yeah.
in, and especially for these ones where you have to carry all your own because you just get tired, after 100 miles, you're just tired of eating the same.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have much
No.
variety, right?
Yeah.
But I've never been one to like those people who eat the gels or the
Yeah.
straight sugar like
Oh,
I don't really do that.
no. No.
So
You can't do that on those long runs. That would just destroy you.
no. I think the one thing that I've done which has helped me has been I call it over proteinating. So I have a lot of protein.
Well,
I mean
they
I
say that's important during menopause to have lots of
yeah.
protein.
Yeah, but I mean, I have a lot. Like, I drink protein drinks. I eat eggs. I eat meat. I probably eat enough protein during the day for like a weightlifter. I don't like, I do a bodybuilder. I mean, I don't ever add it up, but I bet there are days that I have 300, 400 grams because I drink it,
Yeah,
right?
that's awesome though,
I
because
drink protein.
you know, you lose muscle mass from the age of around 30 as it is, and
Yeah.
then when you go into menopause, you lose more. So, I mean, it's really important in
Yeah.
menopause to have protein. So that's
Well, and
all.
I think lifting weights too, because I've always
Oh,
lifted
yes,
weights. I think
you
that
need
that
more
makes a
protein for
difference.
that.
Yeah. I try to be a little bit more flexible with the way I lift. Um, so I call it like little baby weights, and then I do sort of mobility type,
Yeah.
things, or repetition, like more
Do you
like
lift
higher
heavy at
rep.
all? Do you lift
Hmm?
heavy at all?
Oh yes, I
Yes.
lift really heavy. Yeah.
Good. Is
Especially
that
with my legs. I've always lifted really. I used to power lift when
okay. So you
when
know
my leg. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I've lifted for years.
yeah.
Like,
And that once again, that's really important to lift heavy. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And and
yeah,
I enjoy it.
yeah, I enjoy it too. A lot of runners don't like the strength work, but personally, I really enjoy it.
I don't like the CrossFit type, like where they do everything like really fast.
Yeah, no, no.
I do it slower and more controlled just
And
because
I
I
think
think
that's
I've been doing
better.
it for so long.
Yeah.
It's more that kind of old school,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Like the big muscle groups and stuff. I
Yes.
I
Yeah.
I do like to, and just to do something different, like to change it up. And
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's
stairs. I like
there
doing
was
stairs.
something else I was going to ask, and now I've forgotten. That's why I should write notes. Clearly, I'm not a professional podcast host. I just rely on my prodigious memory. So when you say you get, the brain fog and that sort of thing, speaking of a prodigious memory,
Yeah.
what do you find happens? Like you said, it goes blah or whatever, but what do you find?
Yeah. I find it details for things to be just overwhelming.
Yeah,
Like I just can't deal with like a ton of information coming at me that is detail oriented about something that is very specific.
yeah,
It, I don't know why. Like making setting flights, or
yeah.
things that have to do with money, or like renting, like things like that are super specific. It just, I don't know, it drives me nuts. I can't. And then it just makes me anxious, and then I'm like, and then I'm just,
And obviously, before menopause, you never find that sort of stuff difficult.
no, I was an architect by trade.
Yeah,
So no, I did a lot of
yeah,
very detail oriented things. And yeah, and I just can't be bothered. I think that's what it is. I feel like I just can't be bothered with details. Like it
yeah,
just, and I find like I've always had terrible when you say like when you not concentrating on something, but when your attention span.
oh yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like my attention span's never been great, but now it's ridiculously like somebody's talking to me and I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's just like,
Oh
like
no.
you know, and I
Yeah.
I don't, like, if somebody will catch me on it, they're like, I'm in the middle of a sentence. I'm like, oh, sorry. Oh, were you still talking? Yeah, I
Oh, you
was.
are terrible.
And well, I even find I like podcasts and I like to listen to them, and I used to listen to them on my long runs. I can't do that anymore. Like I can't
Mm.
listen to a podcast because I'll be running and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, what? And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh wait, I was listening. Wait, what did they say? Wait, how long have I not been listening? And it's like in my ears.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do listen to your podcast and to others, but I
You just
just
can't remember
can't.
them. Yeah.
I just I can't remember them.
Oh,
No,
that's
and I actually write things down a lot because I don't, and that makes me anxious to think that, oh, I'm not going to remember it. So I immediately, like, I have lists like all over the place on my
yeah.
phone, on pieces of paper, because that is like, if I'm falling asleep at night and I think of something, I have a pad and I write it down because it'll just sit there and go round and round and round and round and round and round and round in my head. And I won't sleep for 4 hours just
Yeah.
because I'm scared I'm going to forget that for the morning. Whereas as soon as I write it down,
Yeah.
it's like I can let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The
Which is
sleep thing,
a good strategy, just generally, anyway, I reckon.
yeah. The lack of sleep too. That's been and it's not just because of the hot flashes. It's also because of my, I guess my brain just
Yeah.
not being able to turn it off and stuff. I used to. I mean, I've never been a great sleeper. Like I had to be tired to go to sleep, but like my husband will lay down and is literally snoring within 30 seconds.
Oh, gotta hate that. Yeah.
I know. And I'm like 3 hours later, I'm like flop, 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 flop.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh, well. Yeah. So, all right. What sort of tips do you have for women who are going through this stage and they're getting really down about it, or I don't want to say depressed, but getting down about it, and a bit like your friend, maybe, oh, I'm going to give up running. What's the bloody point, kind of thing. What would be some tips that you could give them?
well, first of all, I'd say, be kind to yourself, right? Be like, it's okay. You're allowed to have a bad day or two or three, whatever. And I would say reach out to other women, like talk to them. I've heard of a lot of people who go through stuff like this. It can be very isolating.
Yeah.
It can be people, their moods change, their personalities can change, people can become a bit abrasive, and women tend to separate. Like they tend to just stop calling each other, or just not get along anymore. And instead of talking it through, like, saying, hey, look, I'm hot flashy, I'm not sleeping, I feel like crap, let's go for a walk. Let's, and just, I have a couple of really good friends and we just talk about it. Sometimes it's laughing about it, sometimes it's being sensitive to each other, and just listening to what they're going through or I'm going through or at the time. And that makes a big difference to know that you're not going through it alone. Like one of the best things, maybe it's because the phones are listening all the time, is that things like the Facebook groups and stuff have popped up, and I'm able to see what other women are going through, so I don't feel so alone in it. You don't feel so I think people, they can feel very isolated.
Yeah.
Right. And they think, well, I'm going through this, but nobody's going through this as bad as I am.
Yeah.
I think everybody's going through it, and it's bad for everybody, and exactly what we need to do. And that's one of the reasons I thought it was so important to talk about it, is because I know I'm not the only one who feels this crappy. And if it helps somebody else to know that they're not alone in how they feel, then maybe they'll feel better about knowing that, one day it's going to get a little bit better, or just taking baby steps each day to make your days better.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do to.
Yeah. No, that's very good advice. So thank you, Lourdes. And yes, it's a difficult time of life, but I mean, something all women will go through. So we should all be there to support each other.
Well, yeah. I mean, the alternative is you're not going through it because you're dead. So.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. And that's the thing. So,
and hey, it's no more periods, no more worrying about getting pregnant, no more whoopsie babies showing up. There's a lot of good things.
Yeah, that's right, but yeah, it's just getting through this stage. And I know you've had the hot flashes and everything for a long time, but that will eventually stop, and then things will sort of even out a bit.
Yeah, then I think I get to dry up like a prune.
Woohoo, yay. Oh God, the joys. So many.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your experience with perimenopause and menopause, and still being so upbeat about it all.
Well, I mean,
as upbeat as you can.
There are days I get pretty pissy about it.
I can imagine. I would too, to be honest.
Let me know when the webinar is, because that'd be interesting to
sit
in on.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
All right. Thanks.